The shuttle landed on Platform 7 of Station Velith 9, just as the artificial sunrise began painting the observation dome in shades of orange and gold. Commander Yoon Seo-yeon stepped off the ramp and took her first breath of recycled station air. It tasted clean. Too clean. Nothing like Earth. She carried only one bag. Everything she needed fit inside it. 30 years in the military had taught her the possessions were just weight. And weight slowed you down when you needed to move fast. The Galactic Alliance Military Academy stretched before her. Massive towers of silver metal rose toward the dome ceiling. Training fields spread across the lower levels. Thousands of cadets from dozens of species walked the pathways between buildings. Some had scales, some had fur, some had skin in colors humans could not even name. All of them wore the same gray uniform with the Alliance symbol on their chest. Seo-yeon adjusted her own uniform. It was new, stiff. She preferred her old Earth fatigues, worn soft from years of use. But she was not on Earth anymore. She was the first human ever assigned as an instructor at this academy. First impressions mattered. A young officer approached her. He was Mulray, tall and thin with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. His movements were smooth like water flowing downhill. "Commander Yoon?" he asked. "That's me. I am Lieutenant Varys. The Chancellor sent me to escort you." Seo-yeon nodded and followed him. They walked through the main courtyard. Cadets stopped to stare. She felt their eyes on her back. Some whispered to each other. She caught pieces of their conversations. Is that a human? Why is she wearing an instructor badge? Must be some kind of cultural exchange. Probably just observing. Seo-yeon kept walking. She had heard worse. Lieutenant Varys led her to the administrative tower and up to the top floor. The Chancellor's office had glass walls that looked out over the entire academy. Behind a curved desk sat Chancellor Mivith. He was Dorothan, short and stocky with gray-green skin covered in tiny ridges. His species was known for their patience and their long memories. "Commander Yoon," he said, rising to greet her. "Welcome to Velith 9. "Thank you, Chancellor." He gestured to a chair. She sat. He studied her for a moment before speaking again. "I will be honest with you," he said. "Your appointment has caused some concern among the faculty. I expected that. Humans have only been part of the Alliance for 40 years. Many species here have been members for thousands of years. They have certain expectations about who should be teaching their children." Seo-yeon understood. She was an outsider. Worse than an outsider. She was from a species that most of the galaxy still considered primitive. Newcomers. Children playing at being soldiers. "I did not come here to change their minds," she said. "I came here to teach. If they learn something useful, good. If they do not, that is their choice." Chancellor Mivith smiled. It was a small smile, but genuine. "I read your service record," he said. 30 years in your planet's military forces. 12 active conflict zones. Commendations for valor. Commendations for saving lives. And yet you never sought promotion beyond commander. Why? Generals sit in rooms and make decisions. Commanders stand with their soldiers and live with those decisions. I preferred to stand. The Chancellor nodded slowly. He seemed to like that answer. "Your first class is tomorrow morning," he said. "Combat tactics. 60 cadets from 12 species. The Kasari contingent may give you trouble. They come from a warrior culture. They do not accept instruction easily, especially from species they consider inferior. I have worked with difficult students before, not like these. The Kasari have dominated military rankings in this sector for 600 years. Their reflexes are among the fastest in the known galaxy. Their strength exceeds most species by significant margins. And their pride," he paused. "Their pride is their greatest weapon and their greatest weakness." Seo-yeon filed that information away. Pride could be useful. Pride made people predictable. "I will manage," she said. Chancellor Mivith stood and walked to the window. He looked out at the training fields below. "There is a cadet named Thovrik," he said. "Kisari. Young. Talented. His family has produced warriors for 20 generations. He is expected to graduate at the top of his class and return home to lead armies. He has never lost a sparring match, never failed a combat examination, and he has already made it known that he considers your appointment an insult to the academy." "Good," Seo Yan said. The Chancellor turned to look at her. "Good? Students who think they know everything are difficult to teach. Students who are angry want to prove something. Anger can be redirected. It can become hunger. Hunger to learn. Hunger to improve. I would rather have 60 angry cadets than 60 bored ones." Chancellor Mivith studied her again. This time, his expression held something like respect. "You are not what I expected, Commander. What did you expect?" "Someone trying to prove that humans belong here. Someone with something to demonstrate." Seo Yeon stood. She picked up her bag. "I stopped trying to prove things a long time ago," she said. "I am too old for that. I am just here to do my job. If the cadets learn, I have succeeded. If they do not, I will try a different approach. That is all." She walked to the door, then paused. "Thank you for the warning about Thovrik," she said. "But I have met his kind before. On Earth, we have a saying. The tallest tree catches the most wind. Sometimes the wind breaks the tree. Sometimes the tree learns to bend. We will see which kind he is." She left the office and followed the signs to the instructor quarters. Her room was small and simple. A bed, a desk, a window that looked out at the stars. She unpacked her bag. A few changes of clothes, a tablet with her teaching materials, and one photograph in a simple frame. The photograph showed a group of soldiers standing together in front of a burnt-out building. Their faces were tired but smiling. Seo Yeon stood in the center, 20 years younger, with her arm around a young man who was laughing at something off-camera. She placed the photograph on the desk, where she could see it from the bed. Those soldiers were gone now. Most of them, anyway. War had taken some. Time had taken others. But she remembered every name, every face, every lesson they had taught her, and every lesson she had failed to teach them in time. Tomorrow she would stand in front of 60 new faces. 60 young people who thought they understood war, who thought combat was about speed and strength and technology. She would teach them what her soldiers had taught her. That survival was not about being the fastest or the strongest. It was about being the one who refused to stop, the one who got up after every fall, the one who kept fighting when fighting seemed impossible. That was what it meant to be human. That was what it meant to be Earthborn. Yeon turned off the lights and lay down on the unfamiliar bed. Tomorrow would be interesting. She was looking forward to it. The training hall was enormous. High ceilings stretched up into shadows. The walls were lined with weapons from 100 different worlds. Practice mats covered the floor in neat squares. And 60 cadets stood in formation, watching the door. Yeon entered exactly on time. Not early, not late. She walked to the center of the room and stood there, hands behind her back, waiting for the whispers to stop. They did not stop. She could hear them clearly. The acoustics in the hall carried sound well. She is smaller than I expected. Look at her. No scales, no claws. How does her species even survive? This must be a joke. Some kind of test from the faculty. Seo Yan let them talk. She counted to 30 in her head. Then she spoke. My name is Commander Yoon Seo Yan. I am human. I am from Earth, and I will be teaching you combat tactics for the remainder of this term. A Khazari in the front row made a sound. It was not quite a laugh, but close enough. He was tall, muscular. His scales were deep red, which meant he came from the warrior bloodlines. His eyes were gold and fixed on her with open contempt. That would be Thorvik. Seo Yeon continued, as if she had not noticed. Combat is not about strength, she said. It is not about speed. It is not about the weapons you carry or the armor you wear. Combat is about one thing: reading your opponent before they move. Another sound from Thorvik. This time it was definitely a laugh. You disagree? Seo Yeon asked. The Khazari stepped forward. The other cadets shifted, creating space around him. They knew what was coming. I mean no disrespect, Commander, Thorvik said. His voice was deep and smooth. But your species joined the Alliance less than 50 years ago. My people have been fighting wars since before humans discovered fire. What can you possibly teach us about combat? The hall went quiet. Every eye moved between Thorvik and SEO-Y EON. She nodded slowly. A fair question. What is your name, Cadet? Thorvik. Of the Crimson Lineage. Thorvik of the Crimson Lineage. You believe that experience is measured in generations. That because your ancestors fought wars, you understand war better than I do. It is not belief. It is fact. The Khazari have produced more military commanders than any other species in the Alliance. Our reflexes are faster. Our bodies are stronger. Our tactical instincts are bred into our blood. Seo Yeon walked toward him. She stopped when she was close enough to see the patterns in his scales. Show me, she said. Thorvik's eyes narrowed. What? Show me your reflexes. There's a practice blade on the rack behind you. Third from the left. Pick it up. Thorvik hesitated. He looked at the other cadets. Some of them nodded encouragement. He walked to the rack and picked up the blade. It was dull-edged, designed for training, but heavy enough to do damage if it connected. Throw it at me, Seo Yeon said. Commander? Throw it. Any speed. Any angle. Whenever you are ready. The hall fell completely silent. Seo Yeon stood with her hands still behind her back. She did not take a fighting stance. She did not tense her muscles. She simply waited. Thorvik shifted his grip on the blade. His muscles coiled. Seo Yeon watched his shoulder. The shoulder always moved first. That was true for every species she had ever fought. He threw. The blade spun through the air so fast it hummed. Khazari throwing speed was legendary. Most species could not even see the blade leave their hand. Seo Yeon's hand came up. 2 fingers. The blade stopped between them. The humming sound cut off. She had not moved her feet. She had not shifted her weight. Only her hand had moved, and it had moved exactly far enough to catch the blade and no further. Thorvik stared. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. SEO-YEON turned the blade over, examining it casually. Then she looked back at the class. Combat is not about strength, she repeated. It is not about speed. It is about reading your opponent before they move. Thorvik's shoulder rotated 3 degrees before his arm began to swing. His weight shifted to his back foot. His eyes moved to where he wanted the blade to go. He told me everything I needed to know before the blade left his hand. She walked back to the center of the room and placed the blade on the mat. Tomorrow we will begin with observation exercises. You will learn to see what your opponents are telling you. You will learn to listen to their bodies instead of their words. And you will learn that speed and strength mean nothing against someone who knows what you will do before you do it. She looked at Thorvik. He had not moved. His hand was still extended from the throw. Class dismissed. The cadets filed out slowly. They moved like people in a dream, still processing what they had seen. Some whispered to each other. The whispers were different now. Not mocking, questioning. Thorvik remained standing in the same spot. His hand finally dropped to his side. He stared at the practice blade on the mat, then at Seo Yeon. How? He asked. Seo-Y. Eon picked up her tablet from the instructor's station. How what? How did you do that? Kazari blade throws exceed 200 kilometers per hour. Human reaction time is not fast enough to catch that. I have studied your species. Your nerve conduction velocity is average at best. Your muscle response time is below galactic standard. It should be impossible. Seo Yeon looked at him for a long moment. He was genuinely confused. His pride had been wounded, yes, but underneath, that was something more important. Curiosity. He wanted to understand. That was good. That was something she could work with. You studied human physiology, she said. Did you study human history? Some. Your wars. Your weapons development. Basic cultural patterns. Then you missed the important part. She walked toward the door. Humans did not survive because we were fast or strong. We survived because we learned. Every predator that hunted us, we studied. Every environment that tried to kill us, we adapted to. Every challenge that should have destroyed us, we turned into a lesson. She stopped at the door and looked back at him. I did not catch that blade because my reflexes are faster than yours. They are not. I caught it because I have spent 30 years learning to read bodies. Kazari bodies. Malvari bodies. Human bodies. Every species moves differently, but every species tells the same story before they strike. You just have to learn how to read it. Thovrik's jaw tightened. You are saying I am predictable. I am saying you have never needed to be unpredictable. You have always been faster and stronger than your opponents. You have never had to think. Tomorrow, I will teach you to think. If you are willing to learn. She walked out of the training hall, behind her. Thovrik stood alone, staring at the practice blade on the mat. His hand ached from the throw. His pride ached worse. But somewhere beneath both of those things, something else was beginning to stir. He had always been told he was the best. His family, his trainers, his previous instructors. Everyone had said the same thing. Thovrik of the Crimson lineage. Born to lead. Born to win. But that human woman had caught his blade like it was nothing. Like he was nothing. He needed to know how. He needed to understand Dodd, and for the first time in his life, Thovrik was willing to admit that maybe there was something he did not know. News traveled fast in the academy. By the time the second meal period began, everyone had heard some version of what happened in the training hall. A human caught a Kazari blade throw. Impossible. Unbelievable. And yet dozens of cadets had witnessed it with their own eyes. In the dining hall. Tables that usually separated by species were now mixed. Cadets clustered together, trading theories and speculation. The noise level was higher than usual. The energy was different. Something had shifted in the academy, and everyone could feel it. At a corner table, 3 cadets sat with their food trays ignored in front of them. They had more important things to discuss than eating. Nalira was Vethian. Her species was known for their analytical minds and their obsession with understanding how things worked. She had pale purple skin and 4 delicate arms that she used to gesture when she talked. She was studying xenobiology, and what happened in the training hall had given her a puzzle she could not solve. Dorvan was helix-born. His species came from a low-gravity world and had evolved as pacifists. They were thin and fragile-looking, with large eyes that saw more spectrum ranges than most species. He was at the academy studying diplomatic tactics, not combat. Violence disturbed him, but the human instructor fascinated him. The 3rd cadet was Medic. She was Torsion, a species with hard shell-like skin and powerful limbs. Her people were miners and builders, practical and straightforward. She did not care about theories. She cared about facts. I accessed Earth's environmental database, Nalira said. She pulled up a holographic display from her tablet. Numbers and charts floated above the table. Look at this. The others leaned in. Earth is classified as a Category 7 death world, Nalira continued. That is the second highest danger rating in the Alliance classification system. Only Category 8 worlds are considered more hostile to life. Medic frowned. What makes it so dangerous? Nalira began listing. Gravity is 1.0 standard, which is heavy compared to most life-bearing worlds. The temperature variance is extreme. Their polar regions drop below -40 degrees. Their equatorial regions exceed 50 degrees. They have massive storms that can destroy entire settlements. Earthquakes that split the ground open. Volcanic eruptions that block out their sun. That cannot be right, Dorvan said. How can intelligent life evolve under those conditions? It gets worse. Nalira switched to a new chart. Their atmosphere contains a highly reactive gas called oxygen. 21% of their air is oxygen. At that concentration, it is essentially a slow-acting poison that damages cells over time. They also have significant radiation exposure from their sun, and their planet is covered with predators. Large predators. Fast predators. Predators with teeth and claws and venom. Medic shook her head. And they survived all of that? They did more than survive. They became the dominant species on their planet. They hunted the predators. They built structures that withstand the storms. They created technology to regulate temperature and filter their air and heal the damage from radiation. Nalira's voice had taken on an edge of wonder. They should have died. Every model says they should have died. But they did not. Dorvan was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "What does this have to do with the blade throw?" "I do not know," Nalira admitted. "Human physiology is not remarkable. Their reflexes are average. Their strength is average. Their senses are below average in most categories. By every measure, that human instructor should not have been able to catch Thorvik's throw. But she did," Medic said. "Yes, she did." They sat in silence, thinking. Around them, the dining hall continued to buzz with conversation. The human instructor was the only topic anyone cared about. Across the hall, Seo Yan sat alone at a small table near the windows. She ate slowly, methodically, the way she did everything. Her tray held simple food, protein, vegetables, water, nothing fancy, nothing excessive. She was aware of the stares. She had been aware of them since she arrived. They did not bother her. Let them stare. Let them wonder. Curiosity was better than contempt. Chancellor Mivith appeared at her table. He did not ask permission to sit. He simply pulled out a chair and lowered himself into it with a tired sigh. "You have caused quite a disruption," he said. "I taught a class. That is what instructors do. You caught a Khazari blade throw with 2 fingers. That is not teaching. That is showing off." Seo Yan set down her fork. "The cadet challenged my credentials. I demonstrated that his assumptions were wrong. Would you have preferred I let him continue believing humans are inferior?" The Chancellor rubbed his forehead. "I would have preferred a quieter first day. The faculty is asking questions. The Khazari ambassador has already sent a formal inquiry. And I have received 17 requests from various military organizations wanting to know more about human combat capabilities. Good. Good. Attention creates opportunity. If people are asking questions, that means they are thinking. Thinking is the first step toward learning." Chancellor Mevith studied her. "Are you deliberately provoking them? The cadets? The faculty? Everyone?" Seo Yan picked up her fork again. "No, I am simply not hiding. Humans have spent 40 years in this alliance being polite, being modest, trying not to offend anyone. And what has it gotten us? We are still treated like children, still overlooked, still underestimated. She took a bite of her food and chewed slowly before continuing. I am not here to be polite. I am here to teach. And sometimes the best lesson is showing people that everything they believed was wrong. The Chancellor was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood. Be careful, Commander. The Khazari do not forget insults easily, and Thorvik's family has significant influence. I have not insulted anyone. I simply caught a blade. To them, that is the same thing. He walked away. Seo Yeon returned to her meal after dinner. She walked through the academy grounds. The artificial night had begun, and the dome above showed a simulation of stars. Not Earth stars. These were the stars visible from this sector of the galaxy. Unfamiliar constellations. Unfamiliar patterns. She found a bench near a small garden and sat down. The plants were alien too. Blue leaves, silver stems, flowers that glowed faintly in the darkness. Beautiful in their strangeness. Footsteps approached. Light footsteps. Careful footsteps. Commander Yoon? Seo Yeon looked up. It was the Vethian cadet from the dining hall, Nalira. She stood a few meters away, all forearms folded nervously across her chest. Cadet, I apologize for disturbing you. I had a question. About Earth. Seo Yeon gestured to the bench. Nalira hesitated, then sat at the far end, maintaining distance. I have been studying human environmental data, Nalira said. I wanted to understand how you caught that blade. But the data does not explain it. Human physiology should not allow for that kind of reaction. You are right. It should not. Nalira blinked. Then how? Seo Yin looked up at the simulated stars. On Earth, we have a concept called adaptation. Not biological adaptation. That takes generations. I am talking about mental adaptation. Learning to use what you have in ways it was not designed for. I do not understand. My reflexes are average. My muscles are average. But my brain has spent 30 years learning to predict danger before it arrives. I do not react to threats. I anticipate them. By the time Thorvik's blade left his hand, I already knew where it would go. I was already moving. Nalira considered this. You are saying you have trained your mind to compensate for your body's limitations. I am saying that humans do not accept limitations. We find ways around them. We cheat. We improvise. We refuse to play by the rules that biology gave us. Seo Yeon smiled slightly. On Earth, we were not the strongest species. We were not the fastest. We did not have claws or fangs or armor. But we learned, and we survived. That is what Earthborn means. Nalira was silent for a long time. Then she stood. Thank you, Commander. I think I understand a little better now. Good. Understanding is the first step. Nalira walked away. Seo Yeon remained on the bench, looking at unfamiliar stars, thinking about home. Somewhere across the academy, Thorvik lay awake in his quarters, staring at the ceiling. His hands still remembered the weight of the blade. His pride still burned from its loss. Tomorrow he would return to that training hall. Tomorrow he would face that human again. And tomorrow he would begin to learn what it truly meant to fight. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of observation exercises. 3 weeks of cadets learning to watch instead of act. 3 weeks of Seo Yeon breaking down everything. They thought they knew about combat and rebuilding it from the ground up. Some cadets thrived. Nalira excelled at pattern recognition. Dorvan discovered that his pacifist instincts made him excellent at reading aggressive body language. Medic struggled at first, but her practical nature eventually helped her see the value in preparation over raw force. Others resisted. They came from species that had dominated through strength for thousands of years. Learning to think felt like weakness. Learning to wait felt like cowardice. Thorvik fell somewhere in between. He attended every class. He completed every exercise. He never challenged Seo Yan again directly. But he also never spoke to her unless required. He watched her with those golden eyes, always calculating, always measuring. Seo-Y Eom knew what he was doing. He was studying her the way she had taught him to study opponents. Looking for weaknesses. Looking for patterns. Waiting for an opportunity. She respected that. It showed he was learning, even if he did not realize it yet. On the 22nd day, the opportunity came. Seo-Yeon was leaving the training hall after her afternoon class when Thorvik stepped into her path. He was not alone. 3 other Khazari cadets stood behind him. Their scales were different colors: blue, green, silver, different bloodlines. But their expressions were identical, hard, determined. "Commander Yoon," Thorvik said. His voice was formal, controlled. "I wish to issue a formal challenge." Seo Yin stopped walking. A challenge. Under Khazari tradition. A sparring match. Full contact. First to yield or first to fall. The other cadets nearby had frozen. Word spread quickly. More cadets appeared from around corners and through doorways. Within minutes, a crowd had formed. "This is not a Khazari academy," Seo Yeon said. "Your traditions do not apply here. But they do apply to me. My honor demands satisfaction. You humiliated me in front of my peers. Among my people, such an insult requires an answer." Seo Yeon studied him. His posture was perfect. His breathing was calm. He had been planning this, practicing this speech. He wanted her to see a warrior acting with dignity, not a child throwing a tantrum. Smart. He was learning. And if I refuse, then I will tell everyone that the human instructor is afraid to face a cadet in fair combat. Your lessons about observation and anticipation will mean nothing if you cannot demonstrate them when challenged. The crowd murmured. Thorvik had trapped her neatly. Refuse, and she would lose credibility. Accept, and she would have to fight a Khazari warrior on his terms. Seo-Yeon smiled. "I accept," she said. "On one condition." Thorvik's eyes narrowed. "What condition?" "The match will be public. All cadets may watch. Every species. Every rank. If this is about honor, then let everyone witness where honor truly lies." She had trapped him right back. He could not refuse without looking like he feared an audience. The crowd was already too large for him to control. Thorvik nodded slowly. "Agreed. Tomorrow, noon, the main arena. I will be there." He turned and walked away. His 3 companions followed. The crowd parted for them like water around stones. Shyo and continued to her quarters. She did not rush. She did not worry. She had known this day would come. She had been waiting for it. By evening, the entire academy knew about the match. Cadets reserved viewing spots in the arena. Faculty members canceled afternoon classes to attend. Even staff members who never watched combat. Training found reasons to be near the arena at noon the next day. Chancellor Mivith visited Seo Yeon in her quarters that night. "You could have refused," he said. Double quotes. "No, I could not. He is half your age." Khazari warriors at his level can move faster than most sensors can track. Their bone density is twice human standard. Their muscle efficiency is nearly perfect. The Chancellor paused. "He could kill you." Seo Yin was sitting at her desk, looking at the photograph of her old squad. She did not turn around. "He could try." "This is not a joke, Commander. I have seen Khazari sparring matches. They are brutal. They do not hold back. Good. Neither will I. The Chancellor stood in silence for a long moment. Then he asked, "Why did you really come here? To this academy? You could have retired. Lived peacefully on Earth. Why travel across the galaxy to teach cadets who despise you?" Seo Yeon finally turned. Her face was calm. Her eyes were not. "Because I'm tired of watching young soldiers die," she said. "I spent 30 years fighting wars. I watched friends fall because they relied on strength instead of thought. Because they charged forward instead of waiting. Because they believed that courage and victory were the same thing." She stood and walked to the window. The stars outside were different again. The station had rotated to face a new sector of space. These cadets will fight wars someday. Real wars, not training exercises. And when that day comes, I want them to survive. I want them to come home. Even the ones who hate me. Even the ones who think I have nothing to teach them. The Chancellor was quiet for a long time. And if Thovrik does not yield, he finally asked, "If the match goes badly, then I will teach him one final lesson. And I will make sure he remembers it for the rest of his life." The Chancellor left. Seo Yeon returned to her desk. She picked up the photograph and held it close. "Watch over me tomorrow," she whispered to the faces in the image. One more fight. One more lesson to teach. She placed the photograph back on the desk and went to bed. Tomorrow would be a long day. The arena was full by 11. Cadets packed the viewing platforms. Faculty members stood in the observation galleries. Even Chancellor Mivith had taken a position near the main entrance, ready to intervene if necessary. The fighting floor was a circle of smooth metal, 20 meters in diameter. No obstacles. No advantages. Just two opponents and the space between them. Thovrik entered first. He wore traditional Khazari sparring armor, light, flexible, designed to allow maximum movement while protecting vital areas. His scales seemed brighter than usual, flushed with battle readiness. The crowd cheered. Khazari cadets pounded their fists against the railings in traditional rhythm. Their voices echoed through the arena. Then the opposite door opened. Seo-Yo walked in wearing her standard uniform. No armor, no special equipment. Just the same gray fabric she wore every day. The cheering faltered. Whispers replaced it. She is not armored. Does she think this is a joke? She will be killed. Seo Yeon walked to the center of the arena and stopped. She looked up at the crowd surrounding her. Thousands of eyes from dozens of species. All watching. All waiting. Then she looked at Thovrik. "Ready when you are," she said. Thovrik settled into his fighting stance. His weight shifted forward. His claws extended slightly. Every line of his body promised violence. "Begin," the referee announced. Thovrik moved. He was fast. Faster than anything Seo Yeon had faced in years. His first strike was a blur of motion aimed at her shoulder. His second came a fraction of a second later, targeting her ribs. Seo Yeon was not there. She had stepped back. Just far enough. Just fast enough. The claws passed through empty air. Thovrik pressed forward. He attacked again and again. Each strike was precise, powerful, perfectly executed. He used combinations that had won him countless victories. Techniques passed down through 20 generations of warriors. None of them connected. Seo-Y Eon moved like smoke. She did not block. She did not counter. She simply was not where Thovrik's strikes landed. Every time his claws reached for her, she had already moved. Every time his fists swung toward her, she was somewhere else. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. Thovrik was breathing harder now. Sweat glistened on his scales. His strikes were slowing, losing their precision. So Yulin had not changed her breathing at all. The crowd had gone silent. They were watching something they did not understand. A human woman standing calmly in the center of a storm of violence, untouched and unafraid. Thorvik stopped attacking. He stood in the center of the arena, chest heaving, staring at her. "Fight back," he gasped. "Stop running. Fight me." Seo Yeon tilted her head slightly. "Why would I do that?" "Because this is combat. Because honor demands it." "This is not combat," she said quietly. "This is a lesson." She had been showing him the truth all along. He just had not been ready to see it. But now, exhausted and frustrated, with his pride stripped away layer by layer, Thorvik was finally beginning to understand, and he was not ready to accept it. Thorvik's mind was racing. 15 minutes of fighting, and he had not landed a single hit. Not one. His arms ached. His legs burned. His lungs felt like they were filled with fire. The human woman stood before him, breathing calmly, watching him with those strange dark eyes. She had not attacked once. She had not tried to hurt him. She had simply avoided everything he threw at her. It was worse than losing. It was being shown that the fight had never been real. The crowd was silent. Thousands of beings watching, and not one of them made a sound. The Khazari cadets, who had cheered for him at the start, now stared with expressions he could not read. Confusion, concern, something that might have been fear. Thorvik felt something breaking inside him. Not his body, his certainty, his identity. Everything he had been taught since birth was crumbling. He was the best. He was supposed to be the best. 20 generations of warriors had led to him. How could a human, a creature from a backwater world that the galaxy had only known for 40 years, make him look like a child? His eyes moved to the edge of the arena. There was a weapons rack there. Standard equipment for matches that allowed armed combat. This was supposed to be an unarmed match. But desperation did not care about rules. Among the weapons sat a training scanner. They were used for target practice. The device fired bolts of concentrated energy that traveled at near bullet speeds. Non-lethal. Designed to sting but not injure. Safe for use against targets, but never against personnel. That was the rule. Training scanners were never pointed at living beings because their reaction time made them impossible to dodge. Thorvik moved before he could think. He lunged toward the rack, grabbed the scanner, spun, and fired. The bolt left the device with a sharp crack of displaced air. It moved so fast that most of the crowd did not even see it. One moment Thorvik was holding the weapon. The next moment there was a streak of light crossing the arena. Seo Yeon's hand came. Up. The bolt stopped. She held it in her palm. Still glowing. Still crackling with energy. Her fingers were closed around it like she had caught a thrown bowl, not a projectile, moving at hundreds of meters per second. The silence in the arena became absolute. Even the ventilation system seemed to stop. Nobody breathed. Nobody moved. Every eye was fixed on the human woman and the impossible thing she had just done. SEO-Y. Eon looked down at the bolt in her hand. Then she looked up at Thorvik. "Earthborn," she said quietly. "Try again." The scanner fell from Thorvik's hands. It clattered against the arena floor, the sound impossibly loud in the silence. His legs gave out. He dropped to his knees. Not from exhaustion anymore. From something deeper. From the complete collapse of everything he thought. He understood about strength and combat and superiority. She had caught a scanner bolt. With her bare hand. Nobody could do that. No species in the galaxy had reflexes fast enough. It was physically impossible, and yet she had done it. Security personnel began moving toward the arena. They had seen Thorvik grab the weapon. They knew he had violated the rules of the match. Protocol demanded intervention, discipline, possibly expulsion. Decio-Y, EON, held up her free hand. The security team stopped. "No," she said. Her voice carried across the silent arena. "Stay where you are." She dropped the scanner bolt. It fizzled out against the floor. Then she walked toward Thorvik. He did not look up. He could not. Shame burned through him like acid. He had broken every rule. He had tried to hurt her with a weapon when the match was supposed to be unarmed. He had proven himself to be exactly what he feared. Not a warrior, but a desperate child who could not accept defeat. Sao-Y-EON stopped in front of him. Her shadow fell across his bowed head. "Look at me," she said. He forced his eyes up. Her face was calm. Not angry. Not triumphant. Just calm. "Do you understand now?" He wanted to say no. He wanted to deny everything. But the words would not come. Because he did understand. He finally understood. "I was never in danger," he whispered. "No, the entire match. Every strike I threw. Every technique I used. You knew what I would do before I did it. Yes, the scanner bolt. You saw me reach for it. You saw me aim. You knew I would fire before I pulled the trigger. Yes." Thorvik's hands clenched into fists against the arena floor. "Then why? Why let me fight? Why let me embarrass myself? Why not just end it at the beginning?" Seo-Yeon crouched down so their eyes were level. Her voice was soft now. The crowd could not hear her. Only Thorvik could. "Because you were not ready to learn," she said. "You came into this arena believing you were the best. That your blood and your training and your species made you superior. You needed to feel desperation before you could let go of that pride." She reached out and placed her hand on his shoulder. Her grip was firm, but not harsh. "That desperation you felt when you grabbed the scanner. That moment when everything you believed failed you, and you reached for something, anything, to save yourself. That is where real training begins. That is the moment when a warrior becomes a student." Thorvik's eyes stung. He blinked hard, refusing to let himself show weakness. But his voice cracked when he spoke. "I broke the rules. I tried to hurt you. I dishonored myself and my lineage. You made a mistake. Mistakes are not dishonor. They are lessons." She squeezed his shoulder gently. The only dishonor would be refusing to learn from them. She released him and stood. Then she extended her hand downward, offering to help him up. The arena remained silent. Everyone watched. Khazari cadets, human supporters, species from across the galaxy. All of them waited to see what Thorvik would do. He looked at her hand. Small compared to his. Soft skin instead of scales. No claws, no armor. Just a human hand, offered in what looked like genuine compassion. He reached up and took it. Her grip was stronger than he expected. She pulled him to his feet easily. They stood face to face in the center of the arena. "The match is over," Seo-Yeon announced. Her voice carried again now. "There is no winner. There is no loser. There is only a lesson. I hope everyone who watched today learned something." She turned and walked toward the exit. The crowd remained frozen. Thorvik's voice stopped her. "Commander." She looked back. "Thank you." 2 words. Just 2 words. But they carried the weight of everything that had just happened. The weight of a proud warrior acknowledging that he had more to learn. The weight of a species used to victory, accepting that strength was not the only measure of worth. Seo-Yeon nodded once. Then she left the arena. The silence held for another moment. Then slowly sound returned. Whispers at first. Then louder conversations. Then a rising murmur of voices all trying to process what they had seen. A human had caught a scanner bolt with her bare hand. A Khazari warrior had knelt before her, And both of them had walked away with something they did not have before. Understanding. That was the lesson Seo Yun had come to teach. And finally, people were beginning to learn it. The footage spread across the galaxy within hours. Someone had recorded the entire match. Every moment, every dodge, every failed strike. And most importantly, the final seconds when a human woman caught a scanner bolt mid-flight and told a Kisari warrior to try again. Military academies from 17 systems requested copies. Scientific institutions began formal analyses. News networks ran the clip over and over, with experts offering theories that range from reasonable to absurd. Hidden technology, secret genetic modifications, temporal manipulation. Anything but the simple truth that most species refuse to accept. Humans were more dangerous than anyone had realized. Chancellor Mivith spent 3 days answering communications. The Kasari High Command wanted explanations. The Vethian Science Council wanted data. The Alliance Military Board wanted to know if humans should be reclassified as a threat species. Co-YEON continued teaching her classes as if nothing had happened. In the academy itself, the atmosphere had changed. Cadets who once ignored humans now watched them with new eyes. Human students reported being approached in hallways and dining halls, asked questions about Earth and its people that nobody had bothered to ask before. What was it like living on a death world? How did humans train their reflexes? Was it true that Earth predators could track prey by smell alone? Was it true that humans could run for hours without stopping? Was it true that human bones healed themselves after breaking? The questions revealed how little the galaxy understood about humanity. And that ignorance, Seo Yeon knew, was dangerous. Fear of the unknown led to hatred. Hatred led to conflict. Better for everyone to understand humans now, before misunderstandings became wars. Nalira found Seo Yeon in the academy garden one evening. The Vethian cadet had been working on something for days. Her forearms carried tablets and data displays and recording equipment. "Commander, may I have some time with you?" Seo Yeon gestured to the bench beside her. "Of course." Nalira sat down and began arranging her equipment. "I am writing my xenobiology thesis about humans, specifically about human combat adaptation. The Academy has approved it. They think it could help species understand humans better." "That sounds valuable. I have data, environmental records, physiological measurements, historical accounts of human warfare." Nalira paused. Her large eyes met Seo Yeon's. "But I do not have the most important thing. I do not have a human perspective. I do not understand how it feels to be Earthborn." Seo Yeon was silent for a moment. She watched a night-blooming flower unfold its petals nearby. Soft blue light spilled from inside it. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. But I will start simple." Nalira activated a recording device. "The scanner bolt." "How did you catch it?" "The same way I caught Tholvric's blade 3 weeks ago. I read his intention before he acted. But the bolt moved at 400 meters per second. Human neural response time cannot process visual information that quickly." "You are correct. I did not see the bolt." Nalira's arms went still. "Then how?" "I saw Tholvric. His body, his eyes, his breathing. When he looked at the scanner rack, I knew he was considering it. When his weight shifted toward the rack, I knew he had decided. When his hand moved, I knew where he would aim. By the time he fired, my hand was already in the path of the bolt." "But that requires perfect prediction. No species can predict another being's actions with that accuracy." Seo Yeon smiled slightly. "Humans cannot predict perfectly. We predict well enough. And we make mistakes. Many mistakes. But we keep trying. We keep learning. And eventually, we learned to read bodies the way other species read words. She leaned back on the bench and looked up at the dome ceiling, where artificial stars were beginning to appear. On Earth, we were not the top of the food chain for most of our history. Bigger animals hunted us. Faster animals outran us. Stronger animals killed us. We survived by learning to see danger coming, not by having the best senses or the fastest reflexes, but putting together tiny pieces of information and making guesses that kept us alive. That sounds exhausting, Nalira said quietly. It was. It is. Being human is exhausting. SEO Ian's voice grew distant. We do not have natural armor like the Torsion. We do not have venom like the Seleki. We do not have regeneration like the Melvari. Everything we have, we built. Every advantage we possess, we earned. And every day we have to keep earning it. Nalira accorded everything. Her thesis was going to be unlike anything the Vethian Science Council had ever seen. Across the academy, Thovrik was also changing. He no longer trained the way his family had taught him. He no longer relied on speed and strength and genetic superiority. Instead, he spent hours watching, observing, studying how different species moved when they were calm and how they moved when they were stressed. The other, Khazari cadets did not understand. Some mocked him, called him contaminated by human thinking, called him weak. He ignored them. He had been weak before, not because he lacked strength, because he lacked understanding. Now he was learning, and that made him stronger than any of them. One afternoon, he approached Sayuyan after class. I have been practicing observation, he said, watching how beings telegraph their movements. Good. I have a question. Asked. Thovrik hesitated. This was hard for him. Admitting confusion did not come naturally to Kasari warriors. When we fought in the arena, you never attacked. Not once, even when I was exhausted and vulnerable. Even when I violated the rules and grabbed the scanner. You could have hurt me. You could have demonstrated your superiority. But you chose not to. That is not a question. Why? Seo Yan considered her answer. Thovrik deserved honesty. Because hurting you was never the goal. Teaching you was the goal. Inflicting pain would have only made you hate me. It would not have helped you learn. She paused. And because I have hurt enough people in my life, I am tired of it. Thovrik absorbed this. On Kesser, warriors prove themselves through victory, through dominance. Mercy is seen as weakness. On Earth, we used to think the same way. Some humans still do. Seo Yeon met his eyes. But I have learned that the strongest warriors are the ones who choose not to fight when fighting is unnecessary. Anyone can destroy. Building is harder. Teaching is harder. Healing is harder. Is that why you became an instructor? To heal instead of destroy. Seo Yin did not answer immediately. The question touched something deep inside her. Something she rarely talked about. I became an instructor because I failed too many times as a soldier. I watched people under my command die because they were brave, but not wise. Because they had strength, but not judgment. I could not save them all. But maybe I can teach the next generation to be better, smarter, more likely to survive. Her voice softened. Every cadet in this academy will fight someday. Some of them will die. I cannot prevent that. But if I can teach them to think before they act, to observe before they strike, to understand their enemies instead of just hating them, maybe a few more will come home. Thovrik was silent for a long time. Then he bowed. Not a shallow bow of respect between equals. A deep bow. A bow that students gave to masters in Kasari tradition. I understand now, he said. Thank you, Commander. He straightened and walked away. Seo Yan watched him go. One student. One mind changed. It was not much, but it was something, and sometimes something was enough. The transport ship that arrived at Station Velith 9 was not an Academy vessel. It was Khazari military. The design was unmistakable. Sharp angles, dark metal, weapon systems visible along every surface. A warship disguised as transport, built by a species that never forgot how to fight. Chancellor Mivith received the communication 20 minutes before landing. High Commander Thevrak of the Crimson Fleet was coming. He had not requested permission. He had simply announced his arrival. The Chancellor understood. You did not refuse a visit from someone like Thevrak. You prepared. You worried. And you hoped he was not coming to cause problems. Thevrak was a legend among the Khazari. He had commanded fleets in 7 wars. He had never lost a battle. His tactical genius was studied in military academies across the Alliance. And he was Thevrak's uncle, the head of the Crimson lineage, the most powerful warrior family in Khazari space. When the ship landed, Thevrak emerged alone. He wore simple armor, undecorated except for the crimson marks of his lineage. His scales were darker than Thevrak's, aged by decades of warfare. His eyes were the same gold, but harder, colder. The eyes of someone who had seen everything the galaxy could throw at him and survived. Chancellor Mivith met him on the landing platform. High Commander, this is an unexpected honor. I am not here for honors, Chancellor. I am here to speak with the human. No explanations. No pleasantries. Thevrak moved past him and walked toward the Academy buildings. The Chancellor hurried to keep up. Might I ask the nature of your visit? My nephew has written to me. His letters are different now. He speaks of observation and patience and understanding. Words I have never heard from him before. Words that concern me. Thevrak's stride did not slow. I want to meet the being who has changed him. They found Xiao Yan in her quarters. She was reading through student evaluations when the knock came. She opened the door and found herself face to face with one of the most famous warriors in the known galaxy. Thevrak studied her for a long moment. He was taller than Thevrak, broader. The scars on his scales told stories of battles that had become history lessons. Commander Yun Xiao Yan, he said. I am Thevrak. I know who you are. May I enter? She stepped aside. He walked in. Chancellor Mivith moved to follow, but Thevrak raised a hand. This conversation is private. The Chancellor hesitated, then nodded and withdrew. The door closed. Xiao Yan and Thevrak stood facing each other in her small room. Please sit, she said, gesturing to the chair by her desk. He sat. She remained standing, leaning against the window frame. The power dynamic was interesting. He was the visitor. She was choosing not to sit, maintaining control of her own space. Thevrak noticed. A slight movement of his head indicated approval. You are not afraid of me, he observed. Should I be? Most beings are. I have spent 60 years building a reputation designed to inspire fear. And shrugged. Fear is useful in battle. We are not in battle, are we not? His eyes gleamed. I came here to judge you, to determine whether you are a threat to my nephew, to my family, to my people. That is a kind of battle. Then judge me. I have nothing to hide. Thevrak leaned forward. His voice dropped lower. What do you want? Power? Influence? Recognition for your species? Every being wants something. Tell me what you want, and I will understand you. Xiao Yan was quiet for a moment. She looked out the window at the artificial stars. When I was young, I wanted glory. I wanted to be the best soldier my unit had ever seen. I fought hard. I trained harder. I earned medals and commendations and promotions. She paused. And I wrote letters. So many letters. To parents who would never see their children again. To children who would grow up without parents. To spouses left alone. She turned back to face him. Now I want something different. I want to teach young soldiers to survive. I want to send them home to the families who are waiting for them. I want them to fight smart instead of fighting brave, because smart soldiers live and brave soldiers die. Thevrak listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was silent for a long time. "You could be lying," he finally said. "You could be telling me what you think I want to hear." "I could be, but I am not. How do I know that?" Seo Yin walked to her desk and picked up the photograph. She held it out to him. "These were my soldiers. 23 years ago. We were deployed to a conflict zone on the edge of human space. Rebels, extremists, people who believed violence was the only language worth speaking." Thevrak took the photograph. He studied the faces. Young humans in military gear, smiling despite the destruction behind them. "We lost 4 of them in that deployment. 4 soldiers I was responsible for. 4 letters I had to write." Her voice remained steady, but something underneath it trembled. "I have that photograph to remind me of them. To remind me that every decision I make has consequences. Every lesson I teach could save a life or fail to save one." She took the photograph back and placed it on the desk. "That is what I want, High Commander. To teach well enough that fewer parents have to receive letters. To train soldiers who think before they fight and survive because of it. That is all." Thevrak stood. He walked around the small room, examining the sparse furnishings. The single bag she had brought. The lack of personal items beyond the photograph. "You live simply. I have learned that possessions are just weight. A soldier's philosophy." "Yes." He stopped near the door. His back was to her. "I have commanded thousands of warriors. I have sent many of them to die. It never gets easier. The letters. The messages to families. The knowledge that your decisions ended lives." He turned to face her. "You understand this. I can see it in your eyes. You carry the weight of command. The guilt that never quite fades." He paused. "That is why you caught the scanner bolt with your hand instead of stepping aside." Seo Yan blinked. "What do you mean?" "You could have dodged. It would have been easier, safer, but you caught it. You showed everyone that you could catch it, because you wanted my nephew to see something impossible. You wanted to break his certainty so completely that he would have no choice but to rebuild from the foundation. You are perceptive. I am old. Old warriors learn to read people, or they do not become old." He moved toward the door, then stopped. "My nephew wrote that you taught him to observe before acting, to think before striking, to understand enemies instead of just defeating them." He met her eyes. "These are not lessons Khazari warriors typically learn. They are not lessons I learned until I was much older than him. He is a good student. He is fortunate to have you as a teacher." Thevrak straightened. His posture shifted. Something formal entered his bearing. Then he bowed. It was not a shallow bow. Not a nod of acknowledgement between acquaintances. It was a Khazari bow of equals. A bow that one respected warrior gave to another. Seo-YE Owen had seen enough Khazari culture to understand what that meant. Thevrak was not simply showing respect. He was declaring publicly and permanently that he considered her worthy, that he accepted her as a peer. She bowed in return. A human bow. Different in form, but equal in meaning. When they both straightened, something had changed between them. "My nephew is fortunate," Thevrak repeated. "And so is this academy. Continue your work, Commander. Teach them to survive. Teach them to think. And when the next war comes, perhaps more of them will come home." He opened the door and walked out. Seo Yan stood alone in her quarters. looking at the photograph on her desk. 23 years of memories. 4 faces she would never forget. Maybe Thevrak was right. Maybe she could make a difference here. Maybe the lessons she taught would save lives. She would never know about Dot. It was not enough. It would never be enough. But it was something, and something was all she had to give. 6 months passed. The academy continued its cycles. New cadets arrived. Old cadets graduated. Classes were taught and exams were taken, and lives moved forward the way lives always do. SEO-YEON watched it all from her place in the training hall. She had taught hundreds of students now. Some had struggled. Some had thrived. All of them had learned something, even if they did not realize it yet. Today was graduation day. The main hall was decorated in the colors of the Alliance. Silver and blue banners hung from the ceiling. Holographic displays showed the faces of graduating cadets, along with their assignments and honors. Families had traveled from across the galaxy to watch their children take the final step from student to soldier. ECO-YEON stood on the instructor platform with the rest of the faculty. Chancellor Mivith was giving his opening remarks. She barely listened. Her attention was on the cadets standing in formation below. 60 young beings. 12 species. All of them wearing the same uniform she had worn when she graduated from her own academy, decades ago on Earth. Thorvik stood in the front row. His posture was perfect. His scales were polished to a shine. But something about him was different from the arrogant cadet who had challenged her 6 months ago. His eyes moved constantly, taking in the room, reading the crowd, observing everything around him. He had finished in the top 10 of his class. Not because he was the strongest or the fastest. Because he had learned to think. The ceremony proceeded. Names were called. Honors were awarded. Cadets walked across the stage to receive their commissions. Some of them were nervous. Some of them were proud. All of them were young. So terribly young. When Thorvik's name was called, the Kasari contingent cheered loudly. He walked across the stage with measured steps. Not rushing. Not showing off. Simply moving with purpose. As he passed the instructor platform, his eyes met Seo Yeon's. He gave a small nod. She nodded back. No words were needed. They understood each other now. After the ceremony, the hall filled with families and friends congratulating the graduates. Seo Ying slipped away from the crowd and walked to a quiet corner near the observation windows. She was not good at celebrations. Too many memories attached to them. She looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. Too far to see, but she knew it was there. A small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system. A death world that had produced a species stubborn enough to spread across the galaxy. Footsteps approached behind her. Commander. She turned. Thorvik stood there, still in his graduation uniform. Behind him were Nalira, Dorvan, and Medic. Her students. Some of the first beings at this academy who had looked at her with curiosity instead of contempt. Cadet, or should I say Officer Thorvik now. Just Thorvik is fine. He stepped closer. I wanted to thank you. Before I leave. You already thanked me. 6 months ago. That was different. That was gratitude for a lesson. This is gratitude for everything else. He paused, searching for words. When I arrived at this academy, I believed I knew what strength was. I believed I understood combat and honor and victory. You showed me that everything I thought I knew was incomplete. Nalira stepped forward. You changed how I see the galaxy, Commander. My thesis has been accepted for publication. Scientists across Alliance space are reading about human adaptation. They are learning that your species is more than they assumed. Dorvan nodded. I came here as a pacifist who feared violence. You taught me that understanding violence does not mean accepting it. that the best way to prevent conflict is to read people well enough to know when it is coming. Medic spoke last. I did not think I would learn anything useful from a human. I was wrong. Your lessons about observation have already saved my life twice in advanced training exercises. SEO Yan looked at each of them in turn. 4 young officers. 4 minds she had helped shape. 4 lives that would go out into the galaxy and make decisions that mattered. You did the hard work, she said. I just pointed you in the right direction. That is enough, Dovrik said. That is everything. He reached into his uniform and pulled out something small. A piece of red crystal carved into the shape of a flame. The symbol of the Crimson lineage. This is a lineage token. It marks the bearer as a friend of our family. An ally. Someone who has earned our respect and protection. He held it out to her. My uncle approved the gift. He said you would understand what it means. SEO Yan took the crystal. It was warm in her hand. Khazari technology. It would stay warm forever. A tiny flame that never went out. I am honored. You earned it. The 4 graduates stood there for a moment longer. None of them wanted to leave. None of them wanted this chapter to end. Finally, Dovrik straightened and placed his fist against his chest. A human gesture. One that Seo Yeon had used in her classes. One that cadets across the academy had started using to show respect. Earthborn, he said. The others repeated it. Earthborn. Then they turned and walked away, back to their families and their futures and the lives that were waiting for them. SEO-Y, EO, and watched them go. The crystal flame glowed in her hand. She closed her fingers around it and felt its warmth against her palm. Earthborn, that the word had meant something different to her once. A reminder of where she came from. A marker of everything humans had survived to reach the stars. Now it meant something more. It meant refusing to give up. Refusing to accept limits. Refusing to let the galaxy tell you what you could and could not become. She put the crystal in her pocket and turned back to the observation window. Tomorrow, a new class would arrive. Fresh cadets from a dozen species. Some would be eager. Some would be skeptical. Some would look at her and see nothing but a human from a backwater world, teaching lessons that their ancestors had supposedly learned centuries ago. She would meet them anyway. She would stand in the training hall and wait for the whispers to stop. She would introduce herself and explain her philosophy and watch their reactions. Some would resist. Some would learn. That was how teaching worked, and maybe, if she was lucky, a few of them would understand what being Earthborn truly meant. Not strength, not speed, not genetic superiority or advanced technology, persistence, adaptation, the refusal to surrender before the lesson was complete, the refusal to stop trying. No matter how many times you failed, that was the human gift. Not catching scanner bolts or defeating Kasari warriors. The ability to keep going when everything said you should quit. SEO-Y. EON smiled slightly and left the observation window. There was work to do. Students to prepare for. Lessons to plan. The next day, she stood at the entrance to the training hall. The new cadets filed in. Some wore expressions of excitement. Others wore expressions of doubt. A few laughed and whispered when they saw her, just like before. Just like always, she waited until they had all found their places. Then she walked to the center of the room and stood there, hands behind her back, watching them. The whispers gradually stopped. My name is Commander Yoon Seo-yen, she said. I am human. I am from Earth, and I am going to teach you what it means to survive. She looked out at the 60 young faces staring back at her. Skeptics, believers, uncertain. Beings standing at the beginning of journeys they could not imagine. She had been there once. Scared and proud and completely unaware of how much she had left to learn. Let us begin. The lesson started again. The same as before. Different as always. Each class was unique. Each student was a new puzzle to solve, but the goal never changed. Teach them to think. Teach them to observe. Teach them that strength was not inherited but built, one failure at a time. Teach them what it meant to be Earthborn. Outside the station, the stars burned in the darkness. Billions of lights scattered across the endless black. Somewhere among them was Earth. Somewhere among them were all the worlds these cadets would visit. All the battles they would fight. All the choices they would make. Seo Yeon did not know what awaited them out there. She could not predict the future any more than she could catch scanner bolts with her eyes closed, but she could prepare them. She could give them tools and skills and ways of thinking that might keep them alive. And if even one of them survived because of something she taught, then it was worth it. It was always worth it. That was the lesson she had learned on Earth. The lesson she carried to the stars. The lesson she would keep teaching until she had nothing left to give. Strength was not about winning. Strength was about continuing. And humans never stopped continuing. That was what it meant to be Earthborn. The lesson began again.